of Nginx on the front end to serve your static web resources, strong loop for your RESTful interface, and MongoDB for the back end. And this does say CouchDB here, but just in our example, it's going to be MongoDB. So in a traditional backend, you'd have a load balancer connected to some nodes that have ingress 8080, for example, that would comprise Nginx, maybe another VM or node that has strong loop, and then another node that has the database on it. And so you do lose a lot of resources, basically, because you have to scale the application by traditional means. But in the Swarm stack, what we're going to look at is still having the load balancer on the front end, but then kind of collapsing our network to just be this private network that has some VMs on it. We can run the Nginx containers on any of these VMs. The ingress 8080 port will be open on all of the VMs, and then we can segregate by these overlay networks. So we can have a front-end overlay network that Nginx and Strongloop are part of, and then the back-end overlay network that only Strongloop and the back-end database are a part of. So Nginx would not be able to talk to MongoDB, for example. So just quickly in the first step, we're going to create those two overlay networks for front-end and back-end. Then I'm just going to do a Docker network ls in order to make sure that those networks were created. As you can see, we have the three networks that we have created so far: the logging, the front-end, and the back-end network. And the next step I'm going to do is to create a volume for the database. So I'm just going to call that DB data, and again use the Rexray driver for that. And when I do Docker volume ls, we can see that I have the DB data volume created. Now the next step is actually to create the first service that will comprise our 3-tier application. So we'll first start up the database, since the Strongloop application depends on it. So we'll start that up first. So just execute the command docker service create. The name is going to be DB. We're going to create one replica of that. Here are the environment variables that we can pass to it, and the log driver, since we want logs to be sent to Kibana. So Docker has log drivers, and one of them is the Gelf driver. And Logstash understands that driver, and so we can just talk to the logging network on that UDP port that we set up earlier. So if I take a look at Logstash, if you recall, we allowed ingress on port 12201 on UDP, so that's what I am targeting here on each of the containers. Okay. So the next thing is the mount, and again we're mounting the name volume DB data. And if I do Docker service ls, we can now see that the database has started up on worker 1. And the next thing we're going to do is start our RESTful service, which is a Strongloop Node.js application. And again, Docker service create, creating what we've named it the API service. And here it's chosen worker 2 to start that up on. So fast forward the video just a little bit, and we see that we have a running container now. And then we're going to start up the gateway service, which is our Nginx. And if you take a look, the name networks that we're on the back-end, front-end, and logging network for the database. Strongloop is going to be on the front-end and logging network. And then the gateway is going to be on just the front-end network. So it won't be able to talk to the database. And now that our application is running, we should be able to go to the Strongloop Explorer in order to take a look at our RESTful services. And again, since we exposed the port ingress, well, actually in Strongloop we didn't. We exposed port 3000 just to the internal overlay network. But on the gateway on Nginx, we did expose port 8080. And so if I go to port 8080 on any node, worker 1, worker 2, or manager 1, I should see this Strong Loop Explorer API. And so if I go and test that, I can test the get method to get all cars, for example, in this case. There aren't any in the database yet, so we don't see any, but I can go ahead and I can create a sample entry. So I'll choose the model BMW. Actually, model would be something other than BMW. It would be like 335, and then BMW would be the make, and the year 2016, for example. And mileage, let's just say 10 miles. And we'll give it an ID of 1. So when I try that out, you can see that the response body is 200 OK. That record was created in MongoDB via Strong Loop. And when I click Get Cars again, I get a 200 and I actually get 1 response back. Okay, great. So looks like our service is working. We're going through Nginx, which is at port 8080, talking to Strong Loop, and on port 3000. And then Strong Loop is talking to the database and creating records. So now let's look at Kibana. Since we've started up these containers, logs have been sent to Kibana. So the first time we just need to create an index on the @timestamp field. Once we've done that, we can go to Discover, and we can go ahead and take a look at logs, in this case in the last 15 minutes, that have come through. So I can go ahead, and I won't go into much detail on Kibana. It's probably another video on its own. But you can go ahead and you can take a look at many different facets basically that are provided to Kibana. The container name, container ID, the image that it was created from, kind of, the container, what worker nodes are basically running that container. So we can also go ahead and go to the dashboard. Or first of all, we'll go to visualize, and we can choose any sort of visualization. In this case, I'll choose a pie chart and show you kind of what you can do. So on any of the fields that you saw in the Discover tab, you can filter on those fields to create reports. So I just choose a field, host, for example, and maybe this report I want to see where logs are coming from the most. So are they coming from manager 1, manager 2, or sorry, manager 1, worker 1, or worker 2 in this case. So I'll just add a couple, 3 different filters so we can split the graph into those sections. So once I do that and click the play button up there, I'll see that the percentage essentially of where the logs are coming from based on all of the swarm nodes that I have. So that's just a really simple example of one of the visualizations you can do on one of the facets. And you can get more complex. You can say it's on host worker 1 and the message contains error or something. So you can definitely create a lot of cool reports in here. So I'll go ahead and just save this report just to show you how that works. So we'll call it host usage breakdown, or actually maybe a better name for that would be log breakdown by host. Click save, and now that's a saved visualization. And if I want to look at different visualizations in one dashboard, I can just go to the dashboard tab, click the plus button, and choose the visualization. In this case, I just have one, so I can expand that, and then you'd be able to take a look at that on a monitor or something in your office. All right, cool. So you can also save dashboards. Let's call it my dashboard, for example. I can store the time, so I want this dashboard to come up and always show me the last 15 minutes. I can choose different time slices, 15 minutes, last 4 hours, last day, etc., and how often I want to auto refresh the logs and the reports. All right, great. So you do see some of the logs coming in there. I'll show you some more logs rolling. So I'll go here and create another entry in the database. So again, I'll just BMW, this time 428. Try it again. I get a 200 success, and if I do a get, I should have 2 records now in the database. So yep, here are the 2 records. And then if I go to Kibana, I should see those logs coming in from, in this case, Nginx is reporting that Explorer had a GET request on it basically, and a POST request. Okay, great. So the next thing I'll just take a look at is the visualization. You can see that I have Nginx here on the Manager 1 node. And you can see Nginx basically is being shown there. So basically Manager 1 is providing those logs.